Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We're a little bit running late due to technical issues. I've been called Technical Ted before. Nothing could be further from the truth. Poor Nate, just got a taste of it here, but finally figured out how to drop out a Croc show that I was on and come to you live here from my channel, from TED Talks Ball. Got Niner Nate in the house at Niner Nate 49 on Twitter, Niner Nate's Nonsense on YouTube. A great 49er mind and return guest to the show. So thanks for coming back on to chop it up with me again. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you, Ted. A couple months ago, we were talking about the draft, and now here we are, I think a month away from actual football being played at Levi Stadium.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And training camp starting on the 18th of July for rookies and the 25th of July for the veterans. I'll be there, I think, all the dates following the 25th. So hopefully for all the QB battles that should be ensuing there, should be interesting. So Nate, when we were backstage, before we jump into Niner stuff, it sounds like there was some breaking Warriors news a little bit that we might want to dive into.
I mean, the Warriors signed Draymond to a 4-year, $100 million contract. The big three are staying together. You know, I think that this is kind of a hot take, but I think that even if they don't win any more championships, obviously I want them to, right? But I think keeping those big three together, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, it's more important for the city of San Francisco and the Bay Area than anything, because those are the three greatest players that's ever played in this organization at this point. I mean, those guys have been together. They've won 4 championships. They've been to 6, I think, maybe 7. Have they lose 3 of them?
They lost 2, no. Just to LeBron and to the Raptors. So, they're 4 of 6.
So they lost 6 of them. I mean, or they won it in 6 of them. They lost 2 of them. They won 4. I mean, or something like that doesn't happen, to every franchise. And so I think it's the ultimate utmost respect for me is Steph, Clay, and Draymond all having their jerseys retired at the Chase Center for the rest of the time that building is around.
No doubt about it. I would hope for the same thing. Although I did sort of say this off season, I said my only core 2 players left on the Warriors were Steph and Wiggs. And if Clay wasn't willing to maybe take a little bit less to extend, so be it. I don't think he's worth what we're paying him right now. And I was saying, not at that time, but once the 3 years, $100 million came up, I was saying that I don't think Draymond is worth 3 years, $100 million. So I'm glad it's 4 years, $100 million. That's a significant difference between almost 30 or a little over $33 million a year, $33.25 million a year compared to 25 is much more reasonable for Draymond Green. And I'm happy to. Draymond's my favorite player, but I'm one of those fans where I feel like I can be objective and say, yeah, he's my fave, but he's only worth so much in a salary capped league. You gotta consider value of a player, not just their overall skill level. And the Warriors have skirted the salary cap quite a bit for years, but now the league has put in some new rules starting next season that are going to make it much more difficult to play 3 big guys. And so they're probably gonna have to make do with 2 big folks instead of 3 moving into the future. So, or 1 and some smaller ones or something like that. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm glad we signed Draymond. I'm glad we shipped Poole. I released a short during the Lakers series where I think it was called Wake Up Poole, where I was saying, I think Draymond had it right socking him in the face. I think he saw this coming. He saw his work ethic, Poole, said words and shoved him, and he kind of get what he got, and I said, if Poole doesn't shape up in these playoffs, we should ship him out. And sure enough, we did. So no love lost. I mean, I loved him as an offensive player, but like 0 effort on defense from that cat. And it kind of degrades a little bit he and Looney played every game in this last season. And Looney, I know the season before, did the same thing. He's an Iron Man. But when you're an Iron Man and you don't really play D, I think that kind of detracts a little bit from that kind of a record or from that kind of an accomplishment a little.
Sorry, I was reading that comment. What is that? No,
Randy Daytona, he sometimes is a little spicy in here for sure.
I mean, yeah. At this point, the championships are great. I'd love to see another one in my lifetime. Obviously, that'd be great. But I want to go to Chase with my kids when they're 10, 12, and them to see 30, 11, and Draymond's 24. I think keep forget his number. Jesus. But see those guys up there. Just like I want Sean Livingston to be retired up there. I want those to be the guys that are remembered, and I think that this contract gets us a little bit closer to that. And I think that's the most important thing for the Warriors right now.
There you go. And Cinnamon Kiss says, yes, there was a reason, but why Chris Paul? So yes, the reason was salary cap relief, just like what we were just kind of talking about. But why Chris Paul? Yeah, I'm not a Chris Paul fan. I never have been. I won't say I hate him, but strongly dislike pretty easily, I can
23.
say. I feel like he's a little, his number is 23.
23, Jesus.
Just like Jordan, yeah.
Lord.
Just like MJ. And I think LeBron was for the Cavs there for a minute. I don't like
Jordan Poole. That's all you need to know about that trade. Chris Paul now is a better basketball player than Jordan Poole is right now.
Yeah, especially if you want somebody to sort of fill in while Steph rests. But yeah, I don't like the way he plays. I feel like he's a little bit dirty. I don't like the way he's almost always injured for the playoffs lately. Yeah. I kind of hope it was a move to create cap space and then maybe make another move. My feeling for the Warriors is they need a big who can space the floor and be an offensive threat, because you need some. You can't have Loon and Dre on the floor at the same time where you're playing 3 on offense against 5 defenders. It's just it's too much of a disadvantage unless everybody is just playing at the height of their powers, and Clay is just too inconsistent anymore. So I think a big that we could pair with Draymond, so that could do some scoring, some 3-point shooting, and a center. When I mean a center, and then maybe some sort of a wing to go with Looney, the same type of thing. Those are the 2 needs I see the most for the Warriors. We got plenty of guards, obviously.
They have a surplus of guards.
They do. Randy Daytona is saying spicy. Bryant Culp in the house saying, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining, Bryant. He has his own channel. Make sure you check him out. His wife, Tony, too. She does I think it was last night, they do the women, the roundtable every other Thursday evening. So check that out, too. A lot of great women content creators on there. They're all saying hi to each other. Sin says we need a really tall player. Yeah, we do. Looney is a great rebounder and a good defender, but not tall enough to be a rim protector, and almost zero threat on offense, other than times he breaks wide open. So, yeah, no doubt about it. We need a tall player. It's just something the Warriors have resisted ever since Kerr's been here.
I mean, yeah. They seem to want to just shoot the ball and be small. And I don't think you can do that when Jokic is running the league like he is right now.
Boy, he is something else. We were talking a little bit about that backstage, but I think we both agree that the Nuggets could be the next dynasty.
Absolutely.
They look tough to beat. And you were saying the Suns, but they have some personality issues with KD, Beal.
If they had Kyrie, I mean, there's personality issues all over that team. So.
Yeah. Kyrie Irving saying he wants to go to a team and have it be his last team. I'm like, sure, bud. Like, don't bet your rent money. It's one thing I love to say. I would never bet on that for Kyrie. That guy is cancer, metastasized, if you will. Simicus is saying, I can't keep up. I thought you were on with Crocker. Yeah, I was on with Crocker at 2. We were a little bit late getting started, and then what happened was he dropped me off his show, and I was still streaming to my channel, his show, and streaming to Twitter, his show. And here comes Nate in my studio, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how to get out of it. And so I'm like messaging Croc, DMing him, and I pop back into his backstage, and I'm like private chatting him, but he wasn't seeing it. And then like Gammon Brown was backstage, like, oh, well, I'll be short. And he goes on and on and on. and then finally, Nate's like, well, can't you just drop? I'm like, oh, maybe I can. So I pop back into his backstage and unclick the buttons, and so you won't see his whole show on my channel. But anyway, I finally figured it out, got it going, and won't make that mistake again. And glad I didn't, force Croc to end his show prematurely. That would suck too. So I didn't want to do that, but also wanted to get on here with Nate, of course. So what else we got? We got Randy Daytona saying Kings are erecting a larger beam. Get ready to see it from space. Kings are pretty good. I thought they might get Draymond. I thought they were the one team that had enough offense, being the number one offense last year, that they could, take on Draymond and still, it would hurt their offense, but it would help their D and their facilitating. It might help their offense in other ways, even though
they still should have. The fact they let him go back to the Warriors hurts the Kings. Kings fans should be angry right now because Draymond Green would have helped the Kings a lot. And
Randy's not even a Kings fan, but he was trolling me during the playoffs. I think he's a Timberwolves fan, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's an even more miserable fan base to be a part of.
But he was pretending to be a Kings fan and troll me, so good for him. And he said, "You can afford a spaceship ride." Oh, if you can afford a spaceship ride, not me, man. I can barely afford gas these days. It's crazy out there. Although I guess my gas bill should be coming down because PG&E just came and checked our meter, and they said they fixed an undangerous leak. And I'm like, it may not be dangerous to the general public, but I think it was pretty dangerous to my wallet. And we were getting $400 gas bills. So crazy. I know natural gas is really expensive for everyone right now, but it was ridiculous what we were paying. So hopefully that'll help with that. So should we switch gears and jump over to
talk about the 49ers? There's a lot to talk about. Bozos on Twitter. We got everything. My God, it has been.
Oh, he's a Pistons fan. Sorry, not Minnesota. I knew it was somewhere back in that.
The only fan base upper Midwest might be more miserable than the Timberwolves. They stink.
Well, they got Wiseman though, so good for them for that.
Washed up Wiseman, who's not good. Not washed up. He's not good.
He could be. He could be. He's just raw like Lance, So we'll see.
Yeah, it's.
Pistons wanted Draymond too.
If we want to start talking about the Niners, I mean, what a week it's been for just Twitter and these shows and just the 49er talk with, arguably one of probably the least racist of these idiots who show up. Talking
about Flave?
Flave, yes. Sorry, for everyone who wants to know, I'm talking about Flav. Probably the least racist of them so far. Lobs all day is just so racist. Same with AD. All these guys. This guy's probably the least racist of them, but he's also maybe the stupidest because at this point, he just says shit to get a rise out of people, but the stuff he says doesn't even make sense.
And he lies too.
Last week he compared the horrible tragedy that is the submarine exploding at deep depths to Trey Lance, which that's not even a good comparison. It actually makes no sense. He's just an unhinged weirdo, and it's funny that people are giving him any leeway at this point because the guy is literally just saying shit to get on show. Saying stuff to get on shows and to say a bunch of crap that makes no sense. Something that he doesn't even completely understand what he's saying. I think he's it's the definition of that song by Jay-Z. Where it's like, what does it mean? Nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. And that's how he speaks. Everything he says is provocative and it gets people reacting and it gets people talking. And that's why he goes on Croc's show and he sounds like an idiot for a whole hour, just stupid as hell. Croc just kind of let him hang himself from the shortest rope possible. And then Croc says, okay, we're going to bring some guests on. I want to talk to you. And the first guy really just gives it to him and he doesn't really react. But the second guy came on, Roscoe's. I don't know if you know Roscoe's, Mr.
Absolutely. Solutions. He made this overlay. He made my original intro. One of
the most talented graphics designers on Twitter. If you don't know him, Roscoe's Black Solutions. He makes icons, all that stuff. Make sure you hit him up if you want any of that stuff. But the guy goes on there.
It's actually Roscoe's Mister now is his handle. Just so
Roscoe's Mister. Sorry, at Roscoe's.
Yeah, it was Black Solutions. Yeah.
If you want awesome stuff, go to him. But he comes on and he really just decimates this guy. The guy was stumbling. Really couldn't get any sentences out. His face was starting to turn red because he knew he was caught in a lie and he was looking stupid in front of everybody, especially on Croc's show, which is one of those shows where I mean, every Niner fan that I know watches Croc because I think he's the most knowledgeable out of anybody on Twitter. So it's just really interesting that this guy, there's always one every once in a while that kind of gets above the rest. Last year was Daniel Kelly, and that guy was just a troll. This guy is just an idiot, just a simpleton, a dummy, and he has real significant issues. There's something wrong with him. Some of the stuff he says is not how normal people talk. And so if you can avoid that guy like the plague, is my opinion on it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he went on Croc's show and he said, "I never said Trey was a bust," and then I clipped a photo quoted him where he's saying Trey Lance is garbage. Like, how different is it to say someone's garbage than a bust? It's like the guy lies all the time. I caught him in a bunch of lies, and then eventually, and then CG Ruthless was saying, "Oh, have him on your show, have him on your show," and I'm like, I have morals and integrity. I'm not gonna have some guy who lies constantly on my show. It's just, I don't care if I'll get better ratings or views. Like I'll build more slowly if I have to. That's not the way I'm going to make it big, is by letting clowns like that. I'm just like, dude, enjoy your 15 minutes because this is not going to end well for you. And then he blocked me. And so,
He's
and then he called me a P word afterwards. I'm like, really? You're blocking me and you're calling me a P word? Like, you're soft, man.
Yeah.
You can't handle it. And he just got tired of me, owning him, and that was that. So what are you gonna do? Simicus says, who lied? Flave. Puddles is what No Border Sports, Ryan from No Border Sports calls him, because he says he's about as deep as a puddle.
That's funny. That's a good one. I like that one.
Puddles. It is pretty good. Yeah, so Puddles.
He's just an ignoramus. It's funny, it's weird, Ted, because we get one every year. There's always one that is just above the rest. Because there's a lot of them. You look in your comments. I mute my comments a lot of the time when things get over 100 likes, and you look in your comments, you'll find at least one of them. And there's always one that's just kind of like either his clout something he says goes above the rest, and it's just this one. And it's just the same thing you had to do last year. You just kind of like, whatever, don't bother with them, don't interact with them, just ignore them, make fun of him when you want, but at the same time, like, do not put him on screen. Do not give him a platform to talk, because he's just going to say stupid stuff.
Well, the thing that he and the Jets scout have in common is they're both Jimmy G fans. And a lot of the Trey Lance haters, this is a common thread, where they're just mad because we were saying bad things about Jimmy and Jimmy got shipped out. And so now they're going to say things that are bad about Lance, even if they're not true, or even if it doesn't mean anything. If Lance isn't great in his first 5 games, who cares? There's tons of great quarterbacks who were not great in their first 5 games, or who were much worse than Trey Lance was in their first 5 games. So, yeah, no, it's nutty. Randy Daytona says, where do you stand? Trey duty or just mostly hurt?
I think it's a freak injury. I think I said this on your show last time. I think it was a freak injury. Anyone that could happen to anyone. It could happen to Joe Burrow. It could happen to anybody. Joe Burrow's first year in the league, I think he got 4 or 5 games in and got hurt. Like, these guys can get hurt earlier in their career. It happens, right? If it becomes a thing that happens a lot, like if say he wins the quarterback duel, right? And he's starting and they're playing the Eagles, or they're playing someone, I don't know the schedule off the top of my head, but they're playing, and he goes out there and gets hurt again, then there's a trend to it, right? But as of right now, it's a freak injury. The guy got hurt. It sucks because I really want to watch him play football, but I don't want to watch, I want to see what he can do. I want to see if the potential's there, the potential that our coach, Kyle Shanahan, believes in him, because Kyle Shanahan would have never drafted him unless Kyle Shanahan believed that he was better than Mac Jones. And Kyle Shanahan, in his decision, decided that this guy is better than Mac Jones. And so I want to see him play. And if he can't stay healthy, then, he's just an injury-prone player, and that is what it is. They part ways with him. They move on to Purdy or whatever. But I just want to see him play, and I want to see him get a chance. And I believe that they're going to let him play these preseason games. We're going to see a lot of Trey Lance in these preseason games, because I think that they're not totally sure on Purdy to the point where I think they're going to put him out in these preseason games. I would not play him at all, personally. My opinion is Brock Purdy does not touch the field in preseason. There's 3 games, right? It should be Sam Darnold and Trey Lance, and that's it. And if you feel like week 1 that Purdy is ready to go out there and he's ready to start over Trey Lance, then that's your prerogative as the organization. You own these players. They are your players. But I do not believe at all that Brock Purdy should play in the preseason, even for a down or snap. I don't believe Brock Purdy should play in the preseason. It's just not worth it to me when he's coming off such a significant injury, and the timeline, is so close to the season starting. And if they really believe Brock Purdy's the starter, they won't start him. They won't put him out there in the preseason. They'll wait and start him at the beginning of the season if they're confident that he's better than Trey. But we're going to see a lot of Trey Lance in this preseason, and it's going to be Trey Lance fighting for his job, fighting for his chance in the NFL, and I think that that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I would definitely not say duty for Trey Lance. I would say he's to be determined. There was an interesting stat that Jesse Naylor put out where he was saying that Purdy, when he targeted CMC and Kittle, had a 78% completion rate. When he targeted everyone else, it was 58, which is 20 points lower. But the more importantly to me, it's only 3 points higher than Lance's 55% completion rate that everybody likes to beat him up about. And what I was saying is that, Purdy's 3 points higher, but if you've got CMC and Kittle on the field, they're helping you get better rates to everyone else through their gravity. Just like Steph Curry has gravity, bet your bottom dollar CMC and Kittle do too, where more eyes are on them. That gets everybody else open, more space for Yak, easier catches, easier everything. So, I'm not convinced that Lance isn't better than Purdy now. I know Kyle isn't, and that's all that really matters. But, with his reworked mechanics, it looks like he has better accuracy, quicker release, more touch. At the very least, I would say the gap's not as wide as we might have thought. And who's saying that 2023 Purdy is 2022 Purdy? We don't know that. He had this major UCL surgery. The only other QB who's ever had it is Nick Mullins. Can we say that Nick Mullins is 100% now after 2.5 years since he's had his? We can't. He's played in one regular season game. It was a year later, not 6 months later. It was literally December 20th, 2020 is when he had it ripped. And he played December 20th, 2021 for the Browns. They lost to the Raiders. He only threw for 147 yards. You can kind of excuse a low yardage game by QB if you win. But if you're losing and you need your QB to win and he's not showing up, that's not good. And then he hasn't played a regular season game since. So, is Mullins even ready? I don't know. I'm rooting for Purdy. I'm not one of those, I like Lance and I hate Purdy people. I like them both. I want all the healthy QBs we can have. But I have my doubts if Purdy will be ready week one. And I don't think they're going to have to worry about Purdy playing in the preseason because I don't think he's going to be ready. He already missed OTAs. He missed mini camp. We'll see if he makes training camp, but he's already way behind, and it'll be interesting to see. So, I'm a firm believer that Lance will be our QB1 at some point. The other thing, too, is all four of these QBs we got to include Brandon Allen, too, because he's on the team. Not one of them has played a full season. So to think that whoever starts will finish, I hope they do, but I wouldn't bet my rent money. Not that I rent anyway, but I love that saying. So don't bet your rent money. So anyway, I've been going on and on. So jump in.
Yeah. It's funny because it's the main thing on everyone's mind, right? It's who's going to be the quarterback of what is arguably the best roster in the NFC, because it is, right? They're the best offense. I think they're close to the best defense. I think maybe the Eagles will give them a run for their money. Cowboys are going to be a little better because they, went out and improved the team. But, anyone who's anyone knows that the 49ers are the best roster in the NFC. And there's one thing really keeping them from being perennial Super Bowl contenders, and it's been a quarterback. And the fact the matter is that Kyle Shanahan has made magic happen season after season since he took over. You're going to see this year with the Raiders. The Garoppolo's not very good. Jimmy Garoppolo was never very good. After the surgery, something changed. He stopped being, a little more daring with the ball or whatever happened. But maybe he wasn't even that good to start with and no one had tape on him, whatever. But he's just not very good. He's like a mediocre quarterback, a bottom 10, 15 guy. Completely serviceable, right? But when you want to go above and beyond, and what made Tom Brady so great is the Patriots continued to give him good football teams, right? Maybe not always great football teams. There are a couple of years we had Randy Moss. That year he won all the games and then lost the Super Bowl, where he had great football teams to good football teams every single year. And Tom Brady was top 5 almost every single season that he was in the Super Bowl. And when your quarterback is top 5, top 10, and your roster's great to good, you're generally going to make it to the Super Bowl or make it to the NFC Championship most years. And the most amazing thing about Kyle Shanahan, and why I laugh in the face of these idiots who continue to come in my mentions and stuff and say that Kyle Shanahan isn't the good head coach and should be fired, is think of any coach in the history of the NFL who has had quarterbacks in the bottom 10 almost every year and consistently been in NFC Championship game after NFC Championship game after Super Bowl. There's not a lot of guys doing that. And so if Brock Purdy is even top 15, that's going to help them. But the thing is I don't think there's a world, and I could be completely wrong, and this is where people kind of will hate on me, is I don't think there's a world where Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So I don't see it. I love him to death. I think he's super talented for what he's done, and he can prove me wrong. But there is a world where Trey Lance, with the tools he has, with the arm talent he has, with his ability to see down the field, with the way that Kyle Shanahan chose him over Mac Jones, that I could see him being top 5 or top 10. And I think that that's why people are so into this idea that Trey Lance should be given another shot, even if he has not lived up to his potential or lived up to the hype of drafting him at 3. And so at this point, if Trey stinks and he's just not good, then make Brock Purdy the quarterback. And if Brock Purdy stinks and just it was a one-year wonder thing, which I don't think it'll be, any quarterback with Kyle Shanahan is always going to be talented. It doesn't matter who they are. They're going to play to above their potential when you're sitting there with some of the most talented football players in the world standing in the middle of the field, butt naked, wide open. And so that's why the prospect of Trey Lance and the excitement around Trey Lance is still there for a lot of people, is because with Kyle Shanahan and what he does, which is completely and underappreciated every single year that we step into a season. I don't know why people underappreciate it. It's like people think that, great head coaches grow on trees or great offenses grow on trees. But Kyle Shanahan created this roster from literal garbage to what it is now, where every year we're constantly thought of as one of the best teams in the NFL, minus the quarterback. If they figure out this quarterback position and Trey Lance goes out and it turns out he's good, or it turns out Brock Purdy goes out there and plays to his potential yet again, I mean, the 49ers really are on the precipice of a dynasty. And I understand that, people are like, well, they can't keep this guy. It doesn't matter, because they've consistently found ways to fill positions through the draft. And people are like, well, they didn't nail this pick, and this pick was wrong. It's like, yeah, you're not going to nail 100% of your picks. But any GM who's hitting 50% of his picks year after year, like the 49ers have most years, is generally going to continue to replenish this roster where they're going to be able to compete if the quarterback is good. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Shanna fan. But yeah, I mean, lately I've been harping on him for QB mistakes, right? I mean, he passed on Mahomes for Cousins, and we didn't even get Cousins. He passed on Brady for Jimmy to keep Jimmy. We didn't get Stafford. I like the Lance pick still, but I don't like
Stafford.
keeping Jimmy.
Fair, Ted. He wanted Stafford.
Yeah, I like that, but then he didn't execute. He didn't make it happen. Then he.
To be fair, that's a problem there too.
Yeah, and then he drafts Lance. I like the pick, but I think Jimmy was the wrong bridge QB because he had too much pull with the locker room. We couldn't do what we wanted to do. I think maybe someone like Andy Dalton might have made more sense. And then he's more replaceable, where you can get Lance in there and really playing sooner, and in more packages, part-time, and then starting full-time sooner too. I'm totally with you. Jimmy G, I think, is like a bottom 15 quarterback, 20, 22 in the league, average to below average. Purdy, I've got more like 15 to maybe 12. Definitely not top 10. Lance could definitely be top 5 to 10. We'll see, but he's got to learn to do some of the things that Purdy does so well. And yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that there's people that want to say that Lance is a bust or that Purdy is the franchise QB. And there's just not enough evidence on either one yet, especially with Purdy coming off the UCL and not even cleared to play yet. So we got to see what he is. He's got to be physically cleared to play. We got Lynch saying one thing, Kyle saying another, national media is chiming in. But I'll wait till Purdy says, like, hey, I'm starting week 1. That's when I'll feel better about him starting week 1 and cut all the nonsense. But he's got to be physically ready to play. Then he's got to mentally be ready to throw it full steam for him, which isn't a lot of steam. Let's face it, he's got limited arm, limited height, limited top speed. But he's got to be able to rip it, or at least his version of ripping it. He's got to be able to have timing with his weapons, our number one group of weapons in the NFL. And he's got to be able to stand in the pocket and get hit on that arm, when he's waiting for somebody to uncover and he knows he's going to get creamed or clobbered, and he's got to wait till the last second to release it till they break open. So those are 3 big mental hurdles that will come after he's physically cleared to play.
Yeah, so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't at this point. And I think that the best coping mechanism, if that's the word you want to use, or the best thing for Niner fans at this point is just kind of wait and see, right? You can hope a certain quarterback starts or they choose a certain one, but you're not Kyle Shanahan and you're not the 49ers. And no matter how much you hope they start Lance over Purdy or how much you hope they start Purdy over Lance, that's not been decided yet. I mean, I think there is a way they're leaning, and I think it is towards Brock Purdy because of what they did towards the end of the season, which totally makes sense. They went on a run that no one expected, and obviously that was because of Christian McCaffrey. And I mean, he's coming back, and he's still an absolute stud and maybe one of the best football players this team has had the last 10 years. Christian McCaffrey is that damn good. I think that people don't understand how good he was. And it's funny, he was this good in college. I don't know how much you watched Stanford football when he was there.
Stanford. Oh yeah. My dad went there. So
yeah, their playbook was literally hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey or get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, and he would just destroy people in college. And so like to have that kind of weapon on a team that already has a top tier defense, any quarterback is going to be pretty happy. And I think as long as the quarterback isn't coming there and making dumb mistakes, they're going to be fine. But I think that if Lance can come out and show that he has the potential to be, I'm not going to say Mahomes, because Mahomes is a whole nother. Mahomes is not of this world. Mahomes is an alien from planet Jupiter who is masking as a human being. The stuff he does is unbelievable. He's the greatest thrower of the football in the history of the NFL. No one is that talented. It's absurd. The stuff he does week in and week out, it's absurd. But I'm saying more like, just be more like, Joe Burrow. Go out there and play like Joe Burrow. And whichever, if they get that, I mean, the sky's the limit. It's just they got to get it. And Trey Lance needs to hopefully come out and show, hey, this is all I am. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. But there needs to be no drop of sweat not left on the field in those practices and on those preseason games that he plays, where he has to show this is who I am and give Kyle Shanahan a real decision to make in his head. Like, hey, I love Brock and what he did for us last year, but this guy's doing stuff that we have not seen since Colin and stuff that Colin couldn't even do. And that's always been the potential of Trey Lance and the reason they traded up and the reason, they chose someone over Mac Jones is because of the fact that they believe they could have a guy who puts them over that precipice. And that's the hype around Trey Lance. And that's why people want him to be great. And we'll see what happens. There's nothing you can do to make him better. At this point, it's up to, that 23-year-old kid. There's a 23-year-old kid who is probably dealing with the most anxiety, the most just emotions that I, at 33, I've never even felt before. And I wish this kid the best, and I can't wait for these preseason games because watching this kid play, I think is going to be, it's either going to be a huge moment in 49er history, or it's going to be a huge moment in 49er history for the wrong way. I mean, if he comes out and he lights up the world, we're going to remember this. And I'm going to tell my kids about the day that Trey Lance came out in preseason game and just lit the world on fire and never looked back. And they went on to win Super Bowls. Or it's going to be one of those things you're like, man, you remember Trey Lance? God, that guy had so much potential. He just stunk.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And I think in addition to the preseason games, I think there'll probably be a scrimmage with the Raiders. And those tend to be something where you'll see even more. Randy Daytona says Purdy's not the long-term answer. I agree. I don't think he is. He's limited. You can play through those type of limitations, especially if you only have one, like limited arm or limited height or limited top speed. But once you got all three of those, it makes it really difficult. Again, not impossible, but like really difficult. Just want to say hi to Jess from East Coast Red and Gold. I can catch her every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Bex, Maddie B, and Mr. Ty Alston. 10% Ty, we're calling him, agent extraordinaire to turn your podcast into podcast. Randy Daytona says Sam will probably play most of the preseason quarters by a lot. First of all, I'm calling him 6 Cent Sammy now because he sees specters. I got that from David McNiner. I like that one. I could see him playing a lot of preseason just because look at last preseason. Lance came in for like the first series or first quarter, and then we saw a lot of Sudfeld and then just a little bit of Purdy at the end. I could see it kind of again this year with Lance a little bit to start the games with the starters or whatever the starters actually been playing a preseason game, the twos and threes. And then yeah, I could see Darnold second, third quarter, and then Brandon Allen towards the end to do the cleanup with the scrubs. I could see that totally.
I think, and I know Kyle Shanahan has gone on and said, like, I don't get that much from, these preseason games. I get a lot more from practices that you guys don't see, stuff that you guys aren't at. But I could see them signing. Sorry, I was reading one of the comments. I could see them playing him a lot. I think that Trey Lance playing in the preseason is very important. I think that putting him in front of the world where people can see him play and people can see him okay. Because here's the thing, like, how are you just going to play up Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen the whole entire preseason? Because that sounds miserable. That sounds absolutely miserable. I just think that, yes, there will be a time where Sam Darnold starts a preseason game. It'll be that third preseason game where they just don't really care towards that, by then. But I think that Trey Lance plays at least 2 quarters in one of those preseason games. I think he plays at least 1 quarter in one of those preseason games as well.
1 in the first, 2 in the second, none in the third, maybe. Yeah, I'm with you there.
And I think that that's plenty, right? That's enough time for 49er fans and people who are fans of this team to really evaluate Trey Lance and watch and really get some good looks at what he is now, a year after they gave him the football team. I mean, Flav continues to say some crazy shit that is just refutable. They gave him the football team last year. They said,
that's true.
Here you go. 22-year-old kid. This is your football team. This is the most important franchise. This is one of the most important franchises in all of sport, not just football. This is one of the most important franchises in all of sports. And they said, 22-year-old kid, here you go. Go win some football games. And he was handed a crap hand where he had to go play in a monsoon, and then he got hurt on a freak play. In another multiverse, it doesn't rain in Chicago, and that Seahawks play, he doesn't get hurt on it. And he's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the world. Who knows, right? But It was just a terrible hand to be handed because they gave him the tools. They gave him a football team. They said, here you go. You're the starting quarterback of the 49ers. There's no one here that's going to take your job. Kyle Shanahan, week 1, you are the starting quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo's here, but he's not starting. He didn't even have a playbook until a week ago. So, I mean, I don't know how anyone can refute the fact that the 49ers have believed in Trey Lance, given Trey Lance a chance. He just got unlucky. And it happens. That's the world sometimes. Sometimes things just don't go right. And they didn't go right for this kid. And I'd love to see a world where things go right this time around. And he comes out and he kills it in this preseason. And they're like, we have to start Trey Lance. We cannot. Let's try this again. Let's give this one more season. Let's start him. I love you, Brock, but you're not fully healthy all the way, or you're healthy, but you're not all the way there. We just watched this kid light up a professional football team, and we believed in him last year. We believe in him this year, and they roll and they see what happens because it's just, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Trey Lance was saying he wants a competition, and I think he realizes he needs to compete to win the locker room. That because it was handed to him last year, the locker room was still Team Jimmy, and so when Lance got injured and Jimmy came in, like, oh, we're back to 49ers football again. That juice check comment. And so, yeah, I think he wants a fair competition. That's all I'm asking for, an open and fair competition. Even if Purdy's healthy, I want him to compete and show that he's healthy and he's still at his 2022 level, and that Lance still isn't better, because I'm going to say, I don't believe that Lance can't, by the week one, might not be better than even 2022 Purdy. It's a little bit of a stretch. It'll probably take a little more time than that, but we don't know how long it'll take or if he'll ever get there. If he's not there already, some people say a year, some people say 2 years, but it's all just conjecture. Nobody knows how long it'll take for Lance to hit his actual ceiling. So I just don't want it to happen on another team, because then Kyle will never live that down, and we'll never hear the end of it as fans, and with good reason. I mean, you got this guy, and you let him slip through your fingers. You don't develop him; someone else does. That's egg that we should have on our face for all time. That would be so embarrassing, no doubt about it. And Randy says it's so weird to trade multiple first-round picks. Moving up, they did. That package was for Deshaun Watson, and it was going to fly to SF after the massages. Yeah, it was similar. I think it was the same thing we were going to give for Deshaun Watson. And people said we spent a lot, but the fact that we did it way before the draft made it cost a little bit more. And then when you look at what the Texans just gave up to move up for CJ Stroud, it's not that much less. So, yeah, it's still the most, but we had the added advantage of having time to evaluate all the quarterbacks, because we weren't sure, set on anyone when we actually moved up. So, there's some value in that, and ultimately he's not a bust, and he could work out to be worth it. We'll see.
There was a tweet a friend of mine tweeted that kind of made me just really think about what this whole situation has been. Friend of mine, he used to do graphics and stuff. His name is Kyle, and he tweeted basically, what it felt like the situation was. What the Warriors, my head, I got a headache. What it felt like happened. I think that, he basically said that he believed that they moved up to go get Mac Jones. That was the plan, right? Was they went and moved up to go get Mac Jones. And that was the plan. And I totally believe that was the plan. But, when you move up and you have that kind of power, you start evaluating other players and you start seeing other stuff. And I think that Kyle just fell in love with Trey Lance. I think that he loved what he saw from Trey Lance. And because of that, he basically believed that Trey Lance was the guy to run his system. And I asked people who continue to hate on the guy and continue to say rude things about the guy, what has changed? What do you honestly believe has changed in Kyle's mind, where he would just sour on a guy after he played in a monsoon, and then he played in a Seahawks game that they were going to, Ted, they were going to blow the Seahawks out the minute that game started. Yep. There was never a chance that they didn't blow them out. And Trey Lance probably would have made that blowout even longer, because if you notice in that second half, Jimmy Garoppolo got kind of complacent. He kind of played a little bit Jimmy and that's why they went out against Denver the next week and he stunk, because he was playing like Jimmy. Trey Lance probably blows those guys out by 40 points that week. Seattle was awful. They were coming off that week where they beat Russell Wilson. They had no want to play the 49ers, and the 49ers were coming off a week where they played a very difficult Bears game where they weren't happy about their performance, and they would have come out there and killed them. And so I just don't believe that there's a world where, Kyle's soured on Trey Lance that fast. 1 second. I'll bring it.
No worries. Take your time. And I'll just go through some of the comments here. Randy Jones saying RIP Steve Young. Bebop was saying that. Welcome Bebop Jones from the Philly area. Thanks for checking in. Randy's saying Bebop really wow. No, Steve Young didn't die. He got fired from ESPN or let go. A bunch of big people did, including Susie Kolber. I'm blanking on the Jalen Rose or Jalen. One of the Jalen who worked for ESPN. I think it was Jalen Rose. Yeah, the Michigan Fab Five. Um, Steve Kellerman, Max Kellerman, quite a few. But Steve Young was the one that really got me, and Susie Colbert also. I really like her. But Steve, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and I'd say not much worse as a reporter, a damn good reporter. So that's a bummer for sure. But so no, he didn't die though. And then Steve Ospremo in the house. I think that's him balling it up. Says, who cares what he does anywhere else? That's like worrying about what your ex does next. Yeah, but that's
Not
just the
the
way it
same.
is. It's
That's not
not.
this. It's not the same. I don't believe that's a good. I was reading that as I came back, as I was walking back. I don't believe it's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's about giving a football player a chance that Kyle Shanahan, who is as far as I'm concerned, the king of the 49ers franchise. He runs this whole empire at this point, and it's about giving him a chance to see what the player he chose can do. And we've never gotten a chance to even see what Trey Lance can do at this point. And I believe that he should at least get a couple games to find out who he is. And if he leaves and he goes on to be great later down the line, whatever. But it's about giving him a chance, Kyle Shanahan, a chance to play with this guy, which he has not had so far, even though Kyle Shanahan handed him the reins to this football team. It's not the
And I
same.
don't think. Yeah, and I don't think college soured on him, despite what the national media is saying. I mean, they weren't there at the OTAs, they weren't there at minicamp. So either they're guessing this or they're getting a leak. And if it's a leak that Kyle doesn't like, he'll squash it. If it's a leak that achieves a goal that he wants, then he'll let them run with the false narrative, just like they did with Mac at number 3, just like they did. He let him run with the we'll trade Lance during the 2023 draft, which never came to fruition. So basically, it's something that Kyle's cool with. So Kyle would not be cool with saying that Darnold has the edge if he's trying to trade Lance. That would take Lance's trade value. I think Kyle wants to trade Darnold. I think Kyle wants to sign him for nothing. Have him in case Purdy's not ready, and then as soon as we know Purdy's ready, Purdy's number 1, Lance is number 2. Darnold, ship him, see if you can get some kind of compensation for him. I think that makes a ton of sense. And people say, "Oh, the front office, they never lie." It's like, dude, they came out last offseason and said Trey Sermon had his best camp ever, and then they cut him the next week because they were trying to pump him and dump him. So, I mean, to sit here and just go with these national media guys who weren't here, over the guys that we have that are there, and at worst they're saying it's a dead heat, and most of them are saying slight edge to Lance. Just quite the opposite thing. Even Mayoko came out. There was, Niner Nation reported it today that Mayoko, an insider, they just said the title of the article was "A 49ers Insider Refutes that the Niners have soured, or that Darnold has the edge, or that they've soured on Lance." And that was Matt Mayoko, who I definitely trust. I mean, I trust him if he's getting that from. That's always the big question. He did come out and say something earlier where it was an opinion piece that Purdy would be ready and Lance would and Darnold would start if Purdy couldn't. But anyway, bottom line is I don't trust these national guys, and I don't see why all these people do. They're great at telling you what happened, but when it comes to like predicting what's going to happen for the 49ers, they're actually pretty bad at
it. Yeah, it's hard to predict what the 49ers are going to do because Kyle Shanahan doesn't tell anybody, right? Like, he's very secretive, and I think that's part of the reason. It's kind of like he's, I hate doing this because I've got called out about this a million times. He's kind of like Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick took over that Patriots team, and he didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell him what he was going to do. He literally kept everything a secret, and they went on to be a dynasty, a team that people fear him. And Bill Belichick is his own dude. He literally is the king of that franchise. No matter what happens at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is the most important patriot in the history of the franchise. Him and Tom Brady created a dynasty, and I think that Kyle Shanahan is so good because he's following on a lot of Bill Belichick's footsteps. He just needs to win a damn Super Bowl and get a quarterback that can actually stay healthy. And I just want to see him get a season where he gets the chance to play with the quarterback he handpicked over Mac Jones. Mac Jones was there. That was the pick. That's what I'm saying. I truly believe Mac Jones was the pick when they traded to 3. They traded to 3 to pick Mac Jones. And over the course of that time, he said, you know what? I love Mac. I think he can run my system. I think he can do what I want. But Trey Lance, there's something about him that I just can't take my finger off of. And I know he's raw, and I know there's things that I'm not totally sure on with him. But I think that if Trey Lance can become even 75% of what I believe he can be, then I can literally win multiple Super Bowls. And I think that that's what Kyle Shanahan did. And I think that people just need to calm the hell down and let Kyle Shanahan do what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, because I personally don't believe he has led us wrong in the 6 or 7 years he's been here now. I think that this is the best the franchise has been since Bill Walsh was in charge. And a lot of people believe that George Seifert's a better head coach than Kyle Shanahan. I don't believe that at all. George Seifert inherited one of the most talented football rosters, the most talented offenses in the history of the NFL, and literally just had to play Bill Walsh's playbook and play Bill Walsh's players. Kyle Shanahan literally took the 49ers from the ground where they were dog crap terrible, one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and brought them to where they are today. You just have to have more patience at this point.
There you go. No doubt about it. Randy says, Kyle's muy bueno. Ryan from No Border Sports, a.k.a. the one who named Flav Puddles, is here. Thanks for joining. Evo that like button, everybody. Like and subscribe to me, to Niner Nate 49 on Twitter, Niners Nate Nonsense on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe to him, too. Bebop saying Nate Sudfeld Part 2 for Darnold. I think so, too. I think he'll be gone. TDP, will he ever play? I don't know. He could be another third round bust. We'll see. But reports were better.
They have the best of the
reports were better.
They have the literal best running back in football, Ted. It doesn't matter who else is on the roster. They have the literal best running back in all of football. And they got him for 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, a second, third, and a fourth, basically.
That is a steal. Looking back on it.
Yeah, it is.
It is
a major
wild.
steal.
I can't get over the fact they have the best running back in football.
No doubt. And Elijah Mitchell is great when he can play, but he's injury prone. And JP Mason's looking like a heck of a player too. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Good news is people are finally showing up. Bad news is we have to cut it short here because I do have a 4:00 call that I can be a few minutes late to. But I definitely need to bounce here. So I apologize for being late. Getting off a Croc show. I didn't think I could stream. I didn't know how to disconnect his stream from my channel right away. It took me a few minutes and Nate's help to figure it out. But Nate, thank you for that. Thank you for being a guest. Obviously welcome to come chop it up back anytime, run it back with me anytime you'd like. And maybe just when we get some more news, maybe after training camp, let's do it again.
And I'd love to talk to you during the preseason when Trey Lance comes out and lights up the world and we can literally just talk smack to everybody. That's what I'm looking forward to. Is Trey Lance starts one of these preseason games and just lights the world on fire. I'd love to come back on the show and talk to you and just literally just shoot about how amazing it was, because I think that that's what we're about to see. I think he's about to come out in preseason. I think he's about to light the world on fire. And if he doesn't, it is what it is. But I think if he does, like I said, this is history. This is NFL history. If he comes out in this preseason and lights it on fire.
Yeah, I think so too. I can't wait. I hope he can hit a ceiling with us because he could be our next franchise QB for 10 or 15 years. That's exactly what I see for Trey Lance. So I'll just say, peace, everyone. Thanks for coming, and go Niners.